Hi, and welcome to another tutorial on using Hugin to do some sort of panorama stitching or image manipulation. In this video, we're going to expand on the last video where we looked at DeFishing an image, and we're just going to take a quick look at the different projection types you can use once you've defished an image. So what I mean by defishing is if you were to take a photograph using a fisheye lens, you get this really gnarly, twisted look on a lot of the lines. It's a really good look, but sometimes you want to get rid of it. So this is how you get rid of it. You load the images, just like we did last time, and we're going to load in the image here of this walkway with the mural. Again, the camera has no idea what lens I was using because it's a manual focus lens with no contacts to the camera. So I know the focal length is 7.5 millimeters, and I know that it's a full frame fisheye. So it got a horizontal field of view for a portrait image of 99 degrees. That sounds about right. So once I've loaded the image in, you can see it here in the Images tab. What I can then do is try to find vertical lines. Now there's a really cool feature in Hugin that will try to find them for you. So let's run that. We can use the vertical lines setting for feature matching, and we can just say create control points using the default settings. Okay, it just takes a second. It said I added 3 control points. So let's go to the control points tab and see what it added. So not really super pleased with this. It added 1 control point to this palm tree. That's not technically a vertical line. It's close to vertical. So I'm just going to delete that. And then it added another one, the 0 control point now, to this palm tree, and I don't want that either. But it did add 1 to this I-beam. So that's pretty good. That is indeed a vertical line. And I think I'll add another one to this I-beam over here. See how that works out. So I just click and drag to place my point. I talk a little bit more about how this works in the other video, so you can look at that. And then I just click there to place that other point. I'm going to fine tune the location. It looks like it got a pretty good match. So now I'm going to run the optimizer. I'm going to run it for position and barrel distortion. So this might sort of pitch the image around, move it slightly, and it's going to adjust the distortion of the lens as well. Having just 2 vertical lines in the image might make the optimizer a bit upset, but let's see what happens. So it says you have too few control points or too many parameters. Strange values may result. I'm going to take my chances. Let's see what happens. So I press OK, and it says nothing happened for these control points, but I do get some values changing here. I got pitch 10 degrees, roll 2 degrees. Let's see what happened. If I go to my GL preview, my OpenGL preview, you can see here that it did sort of distort my image a little bit. Let's change the projection from equirectangular, usually used for panoramas and such, change it to rectilinear. So it zoomed me way out because of the field of view, but I can just use these sliders here to compress my field of view. And it looks like it did a pretty good job of straightening the image. I say pretty good because it's not great. There's still a few lines that are vertical that aren't really showing up as vertical. So I think we might need to run the optimizer again after adding a few more control points. So let's quickly add a couple more. Let's add one to the outside of this I-beam, to right below the sign. And let's try adding another one to this I-beam over here. It seems like these are our best vertical lines in the shot. It's pretty important to find good vertical lines. Okay, so we've just added these lines. This one has a really high distance, but let's see what happens. So let's run the optimizer again. It might complain at us again. Okay, this time it didn't. It said that we have a maximum of 0.2. That sounds fine. So let's open up the OpenGL tab again, and this time we've got some really good straight lines happening. This is really nice. So sometimes you just need to add a few more control points and the optimizer is going to figure it out. Now see how far up that looks? I think that's because of the way I was holding the camera. In general, I'm not perfectly sure why this happens, but I do know that here in the in this view, we can play with a few different projections and by moving around the sphere. So if you had images making a complete panorama here, you could just drag around to move the panorama around. You can see here we drag around this image like we almost change the perspective. It's not real because it's only one image, but it's sort of replicating what would happen if we held the camera slightly differently. So that's interesting in itself. But another really cool thing you can do is that you can change the projection. So we went from equirectangular, which was the default, to rectilinear. So with a rectilinear projection, go to the crop tab, run auto crop. See, sometimes it loses focus. It looks like the program crashed, but it just went to the background. So the crop succeeded, and it gives us this crop rectangle that we can play with, and we can sort of choose an image that's more to our liking. You know, we could even increase or decrease the field of view, but we can then render this out as an actual image. So that looks pretty good. Another thing we can do is we can change it to cylindrical. I love cylindrical for vertical lines and fisheye images. The reason is, and I'm just going to extend our field of view a little bit, and then I'm going to run the auto crop function again. Again, it sends us to the background, but we can always go back to our fast preview window. The reason I like it so much is because if you notice here, the vertical lines are still straight, but the horizontal lines are still really nice and bent. So that can give you some really interesting sort of bendy perspectives, but the vertical lines are still straight. So the image still sort of looks sensible. And another one that's kind of fun is the architectural projection, just because it's kind of similar to the, where did everything go? There we go. It just didn't refresh properly. It's kind of similar to cylindrical, except it's not quite as extreme. The best way to see how these different projections look is to use a fisheye image. I'll be providing this one as a download if you guys want. And try the different projections out after assigning a few vertical lines and straightening the image. So if I go to my preview, I can show the control points, and we see the vertical lines that we assigned. And as long as we had enough vertical lines defined, Hugin was able to say, oh, clearly these lines should be straight. Let's warp everything else so it fits. And in doing that, you can actually drag around the projection. So you can actually change the projection a little bit if you wanted to see the bars at the top a little bit more. Or you can move that around. You can always undo if you don't like what you just did. And you can basically choose different projections. You can choose rectilinear to get those straight lines that we're used to with a camera. You can use cylindrical to get vertical lines and really warped horizontal lines. And you can use equirectangular if you just want something similar to cylindrical but a little bit different. Some of these actually have sliders you can change. So if I were to choose, let's see, biplane, you can see here that there's a slider that allows me to sort of change where the distortion happens or how the distortion looks. It's probably not great for most images because you can actually see the kink in the center of the image, but it might be what you're looking for in some situations. Either way, rectilinear is what you normally get, so you can do the auto crop feature as it kicks Hugin to the background. Adjust your crop rectangle, and then you can render this out as your new image. So I hope you guys enjoyed this this little exercise. I'm having a lot of fun playing with my new fisheye lens, so I have been experimenting with a lot of these different projections, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this is useful to you. Until next time, see ya.